I'm really getting to enjoy these little videos. Not that I'm getting any better at this, but hey, I managed to actually set up the tripod myself this time, and it's a bit precarious, so I'm going to stand here on the side. So this is page one. I think they're called end pages. To me, this is the first page. So you can see I'm going to play with watercolors and collage in this lovely course by Laura McKendry on Domestika. It's kind of called watercolor techniques for beginners, but I think it can appeal to all levels. I certainly had a great time with it. So you can see lots of fishes and little circles and splashing watercolors, and also doing layers, and some of the fishes actually look like little dresses. You'll probably find out, well, you should find out why fairly soon. If you don't find out why, I've done something very wrong. Okay, little fish comes out of the water to look at the moon, and there's a raven looking at him. Will he eat him? Won't he? Well, we don't know whether the raven ate him or not, but there's definitely a little dead fish with a crow and a rook. And again, this little world I've created has got a lot of moons floating around it. I don't know if they're big gas giants or just lots of moons. And this is a page that was originally an exercise in dropping paint into water and see what happens. And I added the little fish bones at the end to connect it to the previous page. And from the previous page, I wasn't really happy with any of the little characters I had designed, except the little lady in her long dress. So I decided to create more ladies floating around, holding hands, dancing on top of the world, and with the mushrooms growing everywhere. It's going to come back a lot. And on this one, the little ladies kind of went on their own little separate trips, dancing on mushrooms, floating under the world, down under, taking shelter from something under mushrooms. All of those, most of those actually were done by just dropping paint into water. This one was done with a little collage on watercolor paper. More moons and mushrooms. Don't think there's any little lady people in there. This is a connecting page, probably my most abstract page, where I've played with a Japanese calligraphy brush and little circles, and then I added little drawings of the little ladies and mushrooms. This was an exercise page on getting to know your brushes. I just picked a few brushes I don't use very often, and then after the page was finished, I added the various themes that you will see on these pages. So mushrooms, little ladies, fish, pumpkins. We haven't come across pumpkins yet, and circles, lines, and little poppy head. More exercises in playing with watercolors, dropping different colors into circles, and it's a little person here dancing, little fish here in a pond, and I thought this looked like a tree, so I added a little bird and a mushroom to it. On the same theme of dropping paint into paint, wet in wet, and seeing what happens and resist the temptation of fixing it. Pumpkins. I got some wonderful pumpkins this year. Not from our garden, obviously. And continuing with the pumpkin design, but I decided to draw them on these lines, painted with different brushes. And the reason for the lines on the previous page is that this was an exercise of painting long lines with your different brushes. So I kind of set greenish, turquoise, blue lines here, and I decided to do orange lines on the previous page, and this became a little fish motorway, maybe, I don't know, not too many of them. Again, connecting from one page to the next, so I continued with the theme of the lines and just adding moons floating about, balls bouncing, and kind of it led to this page, which I'd actually already done previously. I'm just going to readjust this a little bit. I think my book is sliding. Of collage mushrooms. So the idea was to paint very freely on watercolor paper and do all sorts of effects with scraping tools, bubble wrap, salt, whatever you wanted, and then cut into shape. So I decided mushrooms was going to be my shape. I quite like those actually. I think they're great fun. And so I got little circles, and then I had my little circles connecting to a mushroom and a little lady coming back into the story. And then the little lady on the mushroom decided to jump into the sea and swim and swim and swim. And she arrived in this beautiful world full of happy purple circles. And she decided to do a little fashion show and then walk off and then go back swimming into a world of blue bubbles, where she just swam around, had great fun, encountered a little blue triggerfish. And on the next page, the triggerfish have taken over. Blue triggerfish is one of my favourite coral reef fishes. And the triggerfish is even taken to the skies with a paper plane, which was an exercise in doing layers on very geometric patterns. Hard work for me, that. And we abandoned the plane idea, but we continued with the triggerfish, going into playing with the shells in the bottom of the sea. And more shells and nature objects drawn in watercolour. And we'll find shells again coming back with a little fish emerging there. Same little fish going in and then emerging. Thought that these were stripes done in everything is done in watercolor really, with a few lines, but those were paint dropped wet in wet, so that you get really fuzzy crazy effects. And I thought it looked like seaweed, so my little fish has gone into the seaweed. And I wonder why the fish went into the seaweed. There was a big shark going after him. Big crazy yellow shark breaking through the seaweed, and the little fish is running away. And the shark doesn't look like much on its own, but look at its fin. We'll find where its fin is coming from fairly soon. And yep, we're back to the fashion show with the lovely ladies. I really think I should be a fashion designer. This is fantastic fun. And yes, my ladies are floating into the sea with the fish swimming under them, wondering what's going on. And this lady had her sleeve up from the water, and her sleeve became the shark fin. That was the best bit for me. Really enjoyed that. And of course, you can't have fish without the fishes of the Maldives. Can't remember all the names, but this is a wrasse and oriental sweet lips. That's a surgeon fish of some sort or other, and can't remember what the others are called. I used to know all my fishy names, and put little ladies in there. Became very small. So what happened here? The big blue triggerfish went chasing. No, he's not a triggerfish. He's an oriental sweet lips. Sorry, the big oriental sweet lips went chasing an octopus that went chasing a pumpkin that looked a bit like a squid of some sort, and poppy seed heads floating in the middle of the ocean. Why not? That brought us back to pumpkins and various autumn seed pods. Onto our last page, a very quiet page with just a bit of drawing of fantastic pumpkins and little collage circles. That's it.